everybody! This week on Ask Cristen, I'm talking about rejection. So in a spirit of solidarity, I wanted to share with you my very first experience of romantic rejection. It happened in kindergarten. A girl named Jenny and I had a mutual crush on the same guy. His name was Charlie. He had blonde hair and freckles and little gaps in his teeth, and I thought he was so cute. And he picked Jenny. Ask Cristen question is a collective effort coming from questions I've gotten from you all, questions I have myself, and things happening on the internet. First, one of your questions. CutiePie316289 wants to know, I have an old friend starting to be interested in meeting up again. He's a cool guy and I enjoy his company, but there are a few personality and interest conflicts. Not to mention, I feel no chemistry around him. Should I just tell him up front as gently as possible that I'm not interested romantically but would still want to hang out? What if he never had those feelings for me in the first place and I misread signals and I end up looking like an a-hole? I get questions like this pretty routinely, especially from girls who want to know the best way to reject guys essentially while still preserving their feelings. Most of us don't want to be jerks. We don't like knowing that we're gonna hurt somebody's feelings. The other side of the coin, as I've been on as well, it feels really bad for someone to say, hey, you know what, you're being really vulnerable right now and showing me these tender parts of yourself, but it's not gonna happen. One study I was looking at found that unrequited love is 4 times as common for us to individually experience as mutual love. Another study that I was looking at found that guys are not only likelier to experience unrequited love versus mutual love or attraction, they're also likelier to experience unrequited love or attraction compared to women. But I do think a lot of that has to do with these gender roles of masculine as pursuer and feminine as the pursued. To make things even more potentially distressing for guys, in addition to that expectation of men as the pursuers, there is the further step of pursuers and obtainers of sexual access to women. Not only does that relate to the sexual double standard, but also these reductive and frankly harmful assumptions that guys want to have sex all the time with whomever. All of this starts to add up to this thing that sociologists refer to as the masculinity threat. Essentially refers to a sense of being unable to meet up to societal expectations of what a man should be. And so your identity as a male, as being masculine, becomes threatened. Studies have found that in response to a masculinity threat, men overcompensate. Confirmed with research of doing things like overestimating one's height, of overestimating one's physical strength, inflating the number of past sexual partners, espousing aggression, and even possibly, yes, violence. Now listen, women do similar kinds of things. Femininity threats exist. I'm just focusing on the masculine construct today, so please don't start commenting about how, oh, it's not just men who are at fault. Masculinity threat, I think, is very much triggered by romantic rejection because it hits at that whole thing of pursuit and sexual access. Really what we're looking at when we start peeling away these layers are the manifestations of these gender roles that we have and that I talk about all the time and how they manifest and also interact today with social media. One thing that I think social media has facilitated is the ability to unleash whatever vitriol you might have against someone who has said, no thanks, I don't want to couple up with you, to not just that person, but now to the entire internet. As with the worst case scenario of this whole thing of rejection gone wrong that blew up between BuzzFeed writer Grace Spellman and man about the internet and Harry Potter fandom, Benjamin Schoen. Schoen started contacting Spellman, first on Twitter and then on Facebook, and he made his attraction to her very apparent. She immediately responded, letting him know that she has a boyfriend and isn't interested, and he responded with anger. This whole situation led New York Magazine writer Jessica Roy to comment, "The whole exchange is pretty emblematic of the inherent difficulties of rejecting men, both online and off. Women are frequently made to toe a line between being polite enough to not set off a suitor, but not so polite that their manners are interpreted as flirting." Exactly the quandary Cutie Pie 316289 found herself in. Wanting to be honest with this guy, but being worried that she was gonna end up looking like a jerk and hurting his feelings. My go-to advice is be honest. That means accepting before you do this that you might be losing a friend. It requires honesty not only to that other person, but more importantly first to yourself. And this is the part of the video where I say, guys, and anyone who is being rejected, but statistically guys, you get a lot of it, and that probably super duper sucks. But please, 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 please learn how to take no for an answer. There is this messed up trope in so many movies of the guy who doesn't take no for an answer and gets rewarded for it. He's always the underdog. She always passes him over for the handsomer, rich guy, the popular guy, but in the end, you show up at her house unannounced, you hold up that boombox, and you know what? She's gonna ride off in your Volkswagen Rabbit. This Hollywood underdog trope, even though yes, it did launch the career of John Cusack, who is one of my favorite actors, has done a disservice to men and women alike, telling men that, hey, even if you aren't conventionally attractive or rich or popular, if you pursue her hard enough and never take no for an answer and really truly believe that you are the knight in shining armor that she needs, you will ultimately be rewarded with her. It tells women, you are not people, you are trophies to be won. If, trophy woman, you put up enough of a fight that you aren't ultimately won, as compensation, you owe that other person an explanation as to why he's not entitled to you. So while the best case scenario when it comes to rejection is to be forthright, honest, and do it sooner rather than later, the flip side of that, if you're on the receiving end of rejection, don't punish the other person for making that choice. In rejecting that choice and demanding an explanation and even not accepting that explanation a lot of times, you are denying that person agency. And if the tables were turned, you probably would not appreciate that either. Broadly speaking, the less masculine value we can assign to this stuff about sexual prowess and access and pursuit, probably the better. A lot of times too, the conversations about rejection happen in the aftermath of rejection. So let's talk about it now. What do you think about all this stuff? Is this something that you've experienced on either end? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks to everybody who watched and commented on last week's Ask Kristen video. Is interracial dating taboo? Unfortunately, a lot of you who are in interracial relationships said yeah. H. Chain said, yes, this is still an issue in the UK. I'm black and I have a white wife. I've been stopped while driving twice this year where the police have separated us both, then asked her if she is safe. Neither of us have any criminal record. We don't live in a high crime area and both of us are 40-something professionals. For all the doubters out there, I doubt even you could come up with a likely explanation other than racism. CK Nail Design said, I'm in North Carolina and my husband is black. We get stereotyped all the time. The looks and comments we get from both races are ridiculously ignorant, especially when we have his daughters with us who are not biracial. Now it's time, everybody, to ask me your questions so I can give you some answers.